This is KPPQ LP Ventura, 104.1 FM, and we're in the Women's Room, where we appreciate and support each other. I'm your host, Kathleen Good. Today's guest is a very creative woman, Toni Jannotta, a woman we're lucky to have here in Ventura. She is a singer, dancer, composer, filmmaker, writer, actress, and has worked in children's theater. Hi, Toni.
Hi, Kathleen. Thanks for having me on your show.
Oh, sure. We're so happy to have you here today so you can tell Venturans about yourself and about your creative work. I asked Toni to be part of my Creative Woman series to talk about how she put her many talents and experiences together to create a storybook of healing with music, My Little Heart, Ruthie. I found as a former teacher of creativity workshops that many people believe that an art project springs forth from the artist fully developed, but not so much. There's often a long process, and Toni is here to tell us about her artistic process. So, Toni, let's start with how you acquired all these talents to be able to put a book like this together.
Well, first in the late 70s, I was a member of the Los Angeles Shakespeare Festival as an actress, and in order to be in the Shakespeare Festival, I had to play my violin, sing, do Shakespeare, do contemporary theater, dance a bit. There was no writing in my life then, but that prepared me for children's theater.
Oh, okay. So did you take classes in public school or did you take private lessons?
Musically, I started in the school system. I started playing my violin when I was 9 years old.
Uh-huh.
And music was offered in the school system. And my violin came with the school, and eventually my parents were able to buy me a violin. So I started playing classical music and studying in the orchestra. And then I continued with music theory, musicianship, ear training, harmony, all of that through high school. And then I went into college as a music major, and then my parents bought me a piano.
Oh, wow. So you really got a lot from the public schools.
I got a lot from the public schools.
So do you think we should have the arts in public education?
Well, I don't want to come on your show and get angry, so I'll just say there should be more music in the public school system because what it does for students is immense. It helps them think out of the box. It helps them use mechanical, it helps them use parts of their creativity and mathematical mind in a way that doesn't happen. It helps them with language. It helps them negotiate. It just helps on so many levels.
So, in other words, kids can acquire skills for regular courses like English, for example.
I think music helps in someone's life on so many levels that you can use music. It can stay with you the rest of your life just to help you emotionally and in the world. I think music is like an overtone. It goes all the way up and it goes all the way down. It hits us on levels that we're not even aware of.
Oh, okay. I've heard many people say, I'm just not creative. Do you think creativity can be taught? Or another way of looking at it, can creativity be learned?
So first of all, I think that anybody who says, I'm just not creative, is saying the same thing as, I just can't sing. Everybody sings. Everybody's creative. We're born with it. If you ask a child, can you sing or are you creative? If they're in a bad mood, my guess is they'll say no. But if they're feeling all of themselves, if they are filled up with who they really are, they'll say, yeah, watch this. Yeah, I can sing. Yeah, I can paint a picture. Everybody is born creative.
It's interesting.
I believe we are creative beings. And because I also believe we're a part of nature, creative beings grow like nature grows. You can't not be creative. What you can do is you can believe that you're not creative. You can believe that you cannot sing, that you cannot draw, it's a belief.
And
but I believe it is not true.
And where do you think kids get this idea?
Society.
Or, in the schools or
I don't
just
know.
society in general?
I don't know if it's in the schools because I haven't been in the schools. I've done some career days at middle schools, but that's about as much as I've been in schools in a long time. What I found when I was in the Shakespeare Festival, we traveled around elementary schools, and in those schools, a lot of kids had home problems. So they had issues within the home that they brought to school. So the first place is the home and the family, and I think schools can help a lot. But it's important to give money to the schools because they're the second line of defense when a child is suffering. The first line of defense are their parents.
Right. So do you mean by giving money, funding? The schools should be well funded?
Well funded, certainly better funded than they are now.
So do you think you've become more creative as you work through one endeavor after another?
I think, and I made a documentary here at CAPS, and I had the support of these incredible people.
I know.
At CAPS. I love them. But I think that I have not become more creative. I think I've grown to believe in myself more. And it's the belief in myself that has caused me and kind of pushed me to continue to make things.
So there's always the question of how to support yourself as an artist because art projects can take a long time and you have to keep living. So how have you managed that?
Well, I have a day job. I'm a legal secretary locally.
Why did you choose jazz?
I think when you really are connected to your art and you have to do it, it's not like you choose a subject. The subject chooses you. So the documentary chose me. The book chose me.
That's an interesting way to look at it.
My music chose me. So I'm just really like a pipe, and the music, the creativity, it comes through me, and my job is to stay awake, stay aware, practice, keep my eyes open, and be a good tunnel, let's say, for what blows through me.
And jazz is something that blows through you. Now, do you feel that, as this tunnel, so to speak, that you have the right voice for jazz, or did jazz help shape the sound of your voice?
I think because I loved jazz so much that I have this theory, especially when I was teaching voice, that people would come in and I would ask them what their favorite music was, and I would find that when they had a favorite form of music, that was the music they sang the best. So I think I have a jazz voice. I'm not even sure I have a great jazz voice because I'm a soprano, but it's just what I love and it's just what I sing. So even if I did not have a good voice for jazz, I would not care.
You would sing it anyway.
You bet.
Wow. Well, let's get on to your latest creative project, the storybook with music.
Thank
My
you.
Little Heart, Ruthie. So what is the backstory to this book?
The backstory is that when I was years ago, because I wrote the story in 1992, I was in counseling and I was going through a bad time. And I felt so dark at that time that I came home and I just started writing. And after I wrote it, I found myself rewriting. And then all of a sudden I said, well, this needs music and this needs illustrations, because the person that I was writing to telling this story to was a child. And I
Oh.
realized that I was speaking to the child inside myself, that
Oh.
this was this was what they called inner child work.
Uh-huh.
And so it was a children's book and always had been in my mind, even though it's for adults as well.
I see. So you said that you wrote this a number of years ago. What made you come back to it now?
Well, I put it on the shelf because life got in the way, and I'm a member of the Recording Academy. And I was speaking with this one lady, a New Age pianist, and we exchanged CDs. And there were a couple of themes from Ruthie's music, because it's an 11 movement composition.
Uh-huh.
It's a musical suite
Uh-huh.
that goes with the book underneath the narration.
I see.
And she listened to the music and she said, gee, this is beautiful. Why haven't you done more with it? And I said, well, it's very personal.
Oh.
And she said, well, personal stories are the hardest to develop, produce, and let go.
Ah.
And that's just my humble opinion, but I believe, she said, that they most resonate with other people. And that's all it took. That was 2014.
Uh-huh.
And I finished the writing and I started doing all the little pre-production things. And here we are today.
3 years later.
Four.
Four. I don't know, I'm not adding.
No, that's okay.
Yeah.
But first I had to get that little push. And I think because she's such a dear heart, her name is Laura Sullivan. She's a New Age pianist. And it was that little loving push that got me to just hit critical mass and say, now's the time.
Ah. So that little push, that really helps.
Yeah, it did.
Do you think everybody needs that? Or?
It depends. I mean,
Yeah.
this was just so personal that unless somebody helped me reach critical mass, I might have kept it on the back burner.
Right.
It was one of those on the bucket list.
Oh.
And now the bucket list is coming up because it's time.
It's time. Okay. Well, so in writing the book, how did that help you heal? Do you want to talk a little bit more about what needed healing?
I think it isn't so much specifically what needs healing as it is that everybody has these feelings. Because the hashtag I use for the book is, it was never your fault. That anybody who's been abused, bullied, disrespected, and we have all gone through times in our lives when we feel wounded by something. We're human beings. It happens. So it is the feeling, the realization, I should say, that what happened to you wasn't because of something you did. You are not to blame. It's not something you wore, a place you went, a guy you went out with, a job you decided to take. If someone does you harm, it's all on them. And most of us walk around with shame and blame. And that's what this book is urging people to do. Talk to your inner child and tell him or her, it was never your fault.
Not your fault.
You deserve to be free.
Okay, well, that's very inspiring. Let's just I'll hold that for a moment while I do a station ID. This is KPPQ LP Ventura, 104.1 FM, and we're in the Women's Room, where we appreciate and support each other. I'm your host, Kathleen Good. My guest today is Toni Jannotta, who is part of my Creative Woman series, and she's here talking about her many talents and experiences and how she put them together into a storybook of healing with music. And we're back. So you mentioned that it's a children's book, but it's for adults as well.
Yes, it speaks to the inner child. And I've performed it and shared it with middle school kids up to adults. And luckily, so far, it's very new. It's just been released. I've heard from a middle school child, and I've heard from 18-year-old boy, and it's just been really heartwarming that it might help people feel better.
So
That's
your
important.
purpose in doing this and our purpose in talking about it today is, to tell people about how art can help you heal.
Well, it isn't. I believe that music and art, when I do it now, I feel it's for the benefit of society in some way. Music heals, art heals. It just does. And if it's dark art, it's going to make you feel a little creepy. And if it's beautiful music, it's going to make you feel better. My job with this book and album is to remind people that they were never at fault for any harm caused to them.
Okay.
But I do believe that music and art heals. It has a very strong healing component.
Okay. So what are some of the themes of the book?
Well, that it was never your fault,
Uh-huh.
to make good choices, that there are people out there who will listen to you. You can make good choices.
Uh-huh.
People do listen to you. There are people there who are wrong for your song, and there are people there who are correct. They are your, let's say, tribe. Sometimes it takes a lifetime to find them. But if you are in a dark place, there is light. It's out there, and do not give up.
Okay. Well, that's a very important theme, to never give up. Whenever you're doing a piece of art, you have to remember that you need to keep going. So
Well, I think in life you have to remember
that's true.
to keep going.
Art is a reflection of life.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So, what gave you? What I was leading up to here is what gave you inspiration along the way?
Inspiration
Yeah,
to do the
to
book.
continue to do it. I mean,
You know, people like Laura Sullivan, people in the Recording Academy. There's an independent artist group, an indie collaborative. There's I'm just about to go to the public library system and participate in Indie Author Day. There's a group of independent artists, and eventually we find each other. And I think it's the indie community that is more supportive than any community. The commercial, would I love to be picked up by a publisher? Sure. Would I love a major label? Sure. But while that's not happening, and for the time that's not happening, the indie community is very inspirational, very talented, and very supportive.
okay, so that a lot of your inspiration to keep going has come from other people. Now, you narrate the story on an accompanying CD. How did you find an appropriate to the story voice for this? What process do you use to create a voice?
You know, I guess I thought of the book, when I thought of writing it, I was writing it to the little kid inside of me. So who was talking? I had to ask myself, who was talking? So I think to myself, like a grandma or a mom talking to her children, reading them a bedtime story. And that's the voice I use. And then when I'm Ruthie. Her friend is Clyde. And when I'm Clyde, I'm Clyde. And mostly the instruments, Ruthie is a harpist. Clyde is a jazz trumpeter. So they tell the story as well. So I narrate, I become the characters, just like Mom doing her best to read you a story at night.
And kind of having fun with it at the same time. So what are some setbacks that you may have experienced while creating the book?
I went through 3 different illustrators before I found Jennifer Moniz. And I want to say her last name is spelled Mones. Jennifer Moniz, the amazing millennial. People left the project, didn't like the project, was overwhelmed by the project. I went through 2 harpists.
So you had to try people out and see how it went.
I didn't mean to try them out. I thought with each person we were a perfect fit, just like life. And then I found out we weren't.
Oh. So were you able to find musicians easily? As a singer, do you know a lot of musicians?
I know a lot of
yeah.
I know a lot of musicians, but she just had too many projects. And then Carol Robbins, a jazz harpist out of L.A., she was available, and she's jazz, so she was so easy. She can read anything, do anything, and you just gave her the music, and she said, "Oh, okay, when you want to do it."
Oh, wow. So one of the themes in your book is self-esteem. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about things that erode self-esteem and then what kinds of experiences help build them.
Well, I think that if you believe that your failures are all because you're a bad person or everything is your fault in life, then that's going to stop you. And when you find people or find situations or just get the tiniest bit of wind under your sails, it can help lift you up and keep going. Because as an artist, a lot of stuff just, you have to keep going, whether you want to or not, because you can fall down, but you know you're going to get back to it because you have to. And I also want to say quickly, there's another person, a jazz musician, he's an overall multi-instrumental musician, John Cross, and he's lives in Ventura, and he made the perfect Clyde, and he also helped me with the arrangement.
Right. So you found musicians to play the parts in your...
Yes, because as a narrator, I wanted to be echoing the music as opposed to the music supporting me. Just a little bit opposite. My favorite when I was a kid was Peter and the Wolf. And the music or pictures at an exhibition by Mussorgsky. Peter and the Wolf is by Prokofiev. And those were instruments telling a story. And that is how I wanted Ruthie's story to be told.
So you're inspired by that, Peter and the Wolf.
Yeah, but I love Prokofiev. I love Chick Corea, a jazz composer, pianist.
Okay, well, you're giving us some really good insight into the complexity of putting together a project like this. Now, you've told me that you've done quite a bit of teaching. What did you teach?
When I was dancing in Los Angeles, I was a ballet teacher and a modern jazz teacher, dance. When I went back to music, because I was an actress and a dancer, when I went back to music, I became a vocal instructor, and I would teach based on the way I was taught, what helped me, and that was vocal production, creating a healthy voice. Because I don't believe you teach somebody how to sing. We all sing. All I'm doing is helping them find their voice. It's already there. That's very important to me. And that lifts, I hope, people's confidence as well.
Right.
To know that they don't know. You do know. It's there.
You just have to find it.
It's there. It's just going to pop out when you least expect it. And it's a beautiful thing to watch this in people when they hear their voice for the first time. It's kind of like somebody hearing for the first time. It's just amazing.
Well, another question, a little bit off topic, but I've asked this to other guests because we're in the women's room. Do you think we need more women heroes in our movies, TV, literature?
Certainly, when you look at anything on TV, you will see more men than women. So I would say yes to that, absolutely. And women are rising now. And there's a lot
we hope so.
I believe so.
Yeah.
I think once something begins to rise, it's like creation. Things don't stop creating. Things continue to evolve, whether we want them to or not. So there will be some people that will try to push it down, but it won't work because creativity and nature is stronger than we are. There's a lot of brave women out there who are speaking up now, and a lot of sensitive, well-balanced, and very strong men who are partnering, and we're all out there together.
Oh, well, thank you so much for that passionate answer. I really appreciate that, and I'm sure many of our listeners do too. You've explained and put a little bit different take on creativity than I've heard before.
Oh, good.
Well, thank you very much, Toni.
Thanks for this opportunity, Kathleen. I really appreciate it.
Oh, well, thank you for being in the women's room. Today's guest is a very creative woman, Toni Jannotta, a woman we're lucky to have here in Ventura. Thank you for talking to us about your experiences and projects in art. Now, Toni, one more thing before we go. Could you tell your listener where they can get more information?
Yes. My website is, www.tonijannotta, which is ToniJannotta.com. And if you add a /Ruthie, RUTHIE, you'll find out about the book and the music, or just ToniJannotta.com, and you'll find out about me.
Okay. Thank you very much. Don't forget, In the Women's Room airs on Monday, right away, 8 o'clock in the morning. Tuesday, 2 in the afternoon. Wednesday, we're back to 8 a.m. again, and Saturday at 1 p.m. My next interview will be with global artist Shamsia Hassani, an art professor and street artist from Kabul, Afghanistan, a very dangerous act of art for a Muslim woman in Afghanistan. Shamsia is very inspiring to our women, and she's currently doing a residency here at Ventura College. For more information, you can email radio.capsmedia.org and type in the subject line, In the Women's Room. This is KPPQ LP Ventura, 104.1 FM, and we're in the Women's Room, where we appreciate and support each other. I'm your host, Kathleen Good.